Hello, everyone, and welcome to World War II Above and Below podcast presented by Pursuit Picks Media. My name is Mitchell Babarovich, joined all the way across the pond, actually by two English gentlemen today, my co-host Sam Allen and Josh Fortune,
Hello.
our new friend of the podcast.
Greetings.
Josh made a World War II short film about, is it 10 years ago? How long ago was that?
My goodness, yeah, it was. It was over 10 years ago. That's crazy.
Wow.
Wow.
And the short film is called What Manner of Men? It's about the 1st Airborne Division during Operation Market Garden, and we thought this would slide right into our Netherlands 44 series since we enjoy talking about Market Garden and the war in the Low Countries during the fall of 1944. But Josh, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and take it away.
Yeah. Thank you. Just move my mic closer as well. It's a real pleasure to be here, guys. When Mitchell first reached out to me, it was just so exciting and encouraging to see people similar age or maybe slightly younger than me who have a passion about history, because so many young people, I'm sure you find as well, Sam, when you're out and about in November, nobody's really wearing poppies. Nobody really seems to care that much about what's gone before. And it's
my local town centre's refusing to sell them now.
Really? My goodness.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's like for you, Mitchell. I mean, something I love about the States is when I went there to do some parachute jump training and time with the Airborne Forces, like the discounts we would get and the love and respect that would be shown. So that's something I love about the States. I'd imagine it's probably in decline a little bit as well, but maybe not as much as over here. But yeah, I served in a parachute regiment. I started off in the reserves, and then I transferred to one para. And yeah, I did a few years there. I served in Iraq on Optelic. And then when I was there, I kept a video camera in my pocket and made a half-an-hour film just for my friends and I, what it was like to be a paratrooper deployed in Iraq. And then somebody from the BBC saw it. And they showed it in 2007. My goodness, it was a long time ago. And then I got injured. Actually hurt my knee. It was sort of a combination of all the running with heavy weight on. And then it was a parachute jump. And usually when I tell this story, it has no links to Arnhem, but it happened in Arnhem. That's where my knee got hurt, because I think it was like 65th-ish anniversary. And so yeah, my knee got hurt in that. So my army career sort of came to an end. But I got a job working in Afghanistan for NATO TV. And our job, there's a team of 4 of us, and we had to film everything and give it away for free to try and give a balanced message about what was going on in Afghanistan. So I lived there for 3 years, from April 2008 to January 2011. So now I'm not in the army anymore. I do 1 day a week for a Christian organization called SASRA with the armed forces. So I provide pastoral support to the household cavalry, and then I pastor a church as well, and then I do like animations and things as well. So yeah.
You're a very busy man then.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, thank you for taking the time to do this. We appreciate it. That's awesome. So I came across What Manner of Men when I was starting my own project that's still being worked on all these years later. Not for 10 years straight, because that would be insane. But
not far off.
No, it took longer to make this movie than it did to win World War II. We'll just say that much.
I love that. But the short bits I've seen of it look really promising. So
well, thank you.
To see it when it's done.
Thank you. Well, coming from you, I really appreciate that. When I was initially starting Black-Hearted Devils, I was looking through Kickstarter, and that's how I found What Manner of Men, because they were back when Kickstarter was the thing for funding projects, right? There was a list of similar projects, to like have a template, basically, if you were, trying to create a project, and yours came up, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I was probably one of the first people to see it when it got published. And that was a long time ago. And now that your short film means even more to me, because we walked through does it take place in Oosterbeek? Is that supposed to? Okay. Yeah. So my wife and I walked through the Oosterbeek perimeter a couple years ago on as part of our honeymoon, and that was our favorite part of the trip, actually.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
So let's jump into the film. It's called What Manner of Men, and if anybody wants to see it, I'll post a link to it in the description of whatever platform you're listening to this on. But let's jump into it. So how did you come up with the premise for the film?
Yeah, so the title, of course, as you guys might know, comes from the famous sort of speech by Monty about what manner of men are they that wear the maroon beret. And the British Airborne Forces, to get the maroon beret, you have to go through something called P Company, which I think is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was an incredibly difficult week of selections. And that's one thing we do slightly Josh, our American airborne brothers and sisters about they don't have to do that. Right. And actually, when we had some of the 82nd, again, this was in the mid 2000s, come over and did P Company just as an exchange thing, I think only like 15% of them passed it. So we,
wow.
Yeah. So we always say that we're sort of more on fitness level with perhaps the Rangers than
sure.
the US Airborne. But anyway,
yep.
So anyway, we got the Maroon Beret, which is of course a symbol of of airborne forces around the world. And I just wanted to make I've always been very fascinated by people who make last stands in life. You know, something I found when I was in Afghanistan again and again is asking myself, well, you know, when we're going out on patrol, what's this patrol actually worth? You know, when I had one of my friends who lost both legs and an eye and part of his arm, and then the Taliban had that town again within a few years, I was like, well, you know, is that worth it? And so the idea of anyone choosing to lay down their lives is something that really, I guess it has a lot of emotional appeal to me. And of course, much of what went on in Market Garden was guys choosing not to give up, but to keep fighting for people they'd never met before, etc. And so, I wanted to do a short film. We couldn't afford to fund a feature, but you know, a longer short that explored some of those ideas.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Sam, you got any questions?
I was just thinking it's interesting the point you raised about what things are worth, and it's like how much easier in a sense it must have been for those chaps that aren't them, because you know it's your traditional good versus evil. There is no doubt that will have to be won.
Yeah,
but and then obviously compared to your experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, how much harder it must have been for you fellas.
Yeah,
because the massive debate surrounding it, and I couldn't imagine being in that situation of not knowing I don't have the complete support of people at home. I couldn't of course, imagine that.
The Vietnam generation, well, I think, were the first guys to really start wrestling with it, weren't they? And I think that has been a real challenge. And I think we've also changed as a society because, you know, you can see in the streets, you know, in London or on the New York subway where somebody clearly evil is doing something physically abusive to somebody else and people won't intervene. They'll just film it. And so I think culturally we've changed in that people generally don't like to stick their necks out or lay their lives down for other people, which I think is a real challenge in our society. And of course, you know, speaking as a Christian, the whole essence of Christianity is that Jesus laid his life down. And so
of course,
it's something that really appeals to me. And I've loved, you know, last stands from history, whether they're fictional or real. You know, I love the Boromir scene in the end of Fellowship of the Ring where he redeems himself by laying his life down.
Exactly.
And I've always found those things make me very emotional. I want to be like that in my life. And so, I wanted to do a short film that celebrates it because having jumped into Market Garden myself and having walked those grounds as well, and shared some of the bond. You know, I when I was in Arnhem, and I can maybe supply you some of the pictures actually, Mitchell.
Yes.
You know, I met one of the old veterans there, and you know, he bought me a drink, and it was just lovely to speak to these men because they truly are. You know, what manner of men are these? They're a class above what we used to. Yeah.
Well, talking of men, obviously at the beginning of the film it says this is inspired by real accounts.
Yes.
And is there a particular group or single man that you are basing it off?
No. So it was a sort of, I think, like many semi-fictional war films, it's a composite of, you know, I read a number of, I think, the well-known books about it.
Yeah.
And bits which jumped out to me, which maybe hadn't been covered in A Bridge Too Far, or because Bridge Too Far was obviously a really large scale, you know, my budget was very small scale. So just some of the more interesting little anecdotes I wanted to just touch on those. But yeah, and when I was writing it, I started writing it from the point of view of Apparel because, you know, I'm para, but I had a friend who is she's actually gone on to do some, you know, BBC things. She's done a very good career, but she said straight away, I think the main character shouldn't be one of the paras. It should be somebody who's actually coming in and is inserted into this situation, maybe to sort of be the, I guess the sort of chariot for modern audiences to ride on and to see. And I really like that suggestion. So
that was going to be my next question: is where did the idea come from for that chap?
Yes, because many people, you know, of course, would have bailed out and found themselves fighting and what have you, and so there was a precedent for it, and so we thought that would be more interesting. Because I think in my own heart, though I want to, you know, be this sort of person that lays his life down, I think there's a lot of the selfishness as well. That, you know, like, is it worth it? And so I think the issue that the protagonist in the film deals with is something that I guess I have to wrestle with a lot in life, and I had to wrestle with in Iraq and Afghanistan and things. So yeah.
And that's just, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant film. I haven't said that already, I realise, is that it is an absolute top-notch film. Because
it was yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No, go.
I was just going to say, because it does, like you said, it has that ability to draw you in through, what's his name? Is it Dickie Brown? Is it the RAF chap? Yeah. I'd say it has that ability to draw you in through that character. And it does make you think. It's
really like, because it's funny, that was like the last live action thing I ever made, and probably will do, because I just do purely animation now. So I was really grateful that like that was the last thing I ever made.
What a way to finish it.
The length was quite uncomfortable in that you couldn't really enter it into festivals because it was too long to be a short, and it was too short to be a feature length. So, you know, there's not much that I was able to really do with it, but what was just amazing was to see how many people just wanted to help and support, you know, from around the world. And we even had, I don't know how obvious it was in the film, but what the guy who's on the stretcher who lost his leg, actually lost his leg in Afghanistan, and so he came along, and you know, he got blown up about a year or so after I left the army, but I met him and I was friends with him. And when he heard I was doing the film, he's like, "Mate, let me be a casualty. I'll come along."
Yeah, wow.
So he came along, and and a few, like quite a few people who were in the trenches, not the lead characters, because generally they have to be actors to do good portrayal, but everyone else was basically a serving soldier or, you know, a recently departed from service soldier. So it was really nice to have that, even though they're using uniforms and weapon systems that they'd never touched before. There was just a level of authenticity which they brought to it, because I think you guys know, you know, as military experts, there's nothing worse than seeing a film where they got the equipment really badly wrong, and the cast they clearly never touched a weapon before. And it's just so cringeworthy. So yeah, I was hoping to sort of counteract that a little bit by having actual soldiers be in it. Yeah.
So how long did it take to get this whole thing completed, from like the concept to basically the premiere?
So it was pretty quick. I wrote it, I think, I mean, it was actually really quick. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 months in total. Not to put any pressure on you, Mitchell. You know,
I'm out of here.
But I think I'd been reading the books during my like early summer holiday, and I was like, man, this is amazing. So I just sat down and wrote something then and there, and then we developed it over the summer. Then we just were like, like September coming up, we want the weather to sort of match September. I don't want to wait a whole year, so let's get a Kickstarter together and let's go for it. And then we reached the funds, and we were able to hire a place, because the filming location was a tiny woodland, because, you know, to have somewhere where you can have pyrotechnics and things going off, it was really difficult to find somewhere that was willing to give it to us for a few days. And so if you turn the camera in one way, you'd see like an abandoned train track and things, and trains kept going past, so there's a lot of dubbing we had to do afterwards with the time. just to rescue the sound. But yeah, our team was, I'd been lecturing in a film university at the time, so I recruited a lot of sort of like the best students to come and help, and they did a really good job at helping to film it and using it for their final portfolio, which kept the production costs down and things. So yeah, it was just lovely to see how everything came together and everybody pitching in, and we all just camped out. So we didn't, you know, I didn't have like hotels or anything we literally just all bought about 5 or 6 tents. We drove up there. It was a bit awkward. One of the, I don't want to slander him, so I won't say which character it was, but one of the absolutely essential characters in the film was apprehended in a service station on the way up to shoot, because he'd stolen a magazine. And I was like, mate, like I would have bought you a £5 magazine.
Wow.
Don't get arrested and ruin our whole film, because you. So yeah, we they were very kind. They let him off with a warning.
Yeah,
and it was all good. But I was like, my goodness, what have I done?
Yeah, it's crazy how little things like that can hold up a whole production. I wouldn't know anything about that.
I am so glad I've never made a film before.
Yeah. Honestly, mate, save yourself the hassle. Yeah. And that's always something I used to say when we'd have prospective students come and interview for the university. I'd say, look, guys, because a lot of universities love to run film courses just to grab loads of money because everyone wants to be Spielberg or whatever. And I say, look, guys, I don't think any of you here should be filmmakers, but if anything I say to try and dissuade you doesn't work and you still want to be here, then we want you. Because I just felt so bad, like trying to get people in under full pretenses, and it went down well with them. But yeah, I'm grateful now to be doing animations where I don't need to be cold, I don't need to feed my characters or anything else like that. So yeah.
And how long was the shoot itself? Real quick, I just want to ask.
No, go on.
Shoot was 3.5 days. Yeah, it was insane. It was. I mean, because I was thinking there about, I know we had the tents, but I don't remember being in my tent at any stage because we had the night scene as well.
Oh, yes.
So it was just a lot. We would be up at 5 a.m.
Sure.
We would finish. We'd shoot until it was too dark to shoot, and then on one night when we had the night scene. So it was a lot of work, and there were so many. I think there's probably about 20 to 30 people on set in total. So it was quite a lot, but we had a fantastic armourer who provided all of the weapons, the pyrotechnics, and the uniforms as well. And
Hamish McLeod.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I've come across a few of his bits. He did a film a few years ago about Waterloo.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did Black Sails as well. Amazon.
Yes.
Oh,
Amazon.
yeah.
Yeah. And he did is it Hollow Crown? The Tudor.
Yes, Hollow Crown. Yeah.
Yes, I think he did that as well. So
that's Shakespearean.
Yes, yeah. So no, he's done a number of things, and so he was because before this film, I don't know if you'd seen my film Mine, which is the 5-minute. So
is it the helicopter pilots, the army?
No. So that was the Afghan documentary. So this was my first ever World War II film. Have you heard of 48-hour film festivals? So it's basically, yeah. So on like this Saturday morning or Friday morning, it's like, right, here's your title, here's a line of dialogue, here's a prop you must use.
Yeah.
And we were like, right, we want to do a World War II film. So we did it, and we won the festival. And what was amazing, because as you might detected, I'm a bit of a Lord of the Rings fan, and they had Bernard Hill, who plays Theoden, or the captain in Titanic. It's him.
Yeah.
He walked up to us at the award ceremony and said, "You guys have made the perfect film." And so Hamish had given us the equipment and weapons for that. And when he saw that we won, he was like, "Oh, guys, let's do something more substantial together." So we then planned this. When I wanted to do this, I was like, "Hamish is the absolute. If we don't have Hamish, we can't do this." So it was really good. And he drove up with his big trailer full of weapons and things, and gave the actors weapons handling tests and everything. And it was just it all worked together really well, which was great.
I'm pretty sure What Manner of Men is still on the History in the Making website. It's on the front page, I think.
Nice. Yeah. No, he was so happy with the screen grabs that we gave him from that. Yeah.
That competition, is that where you won the camera?
Yes. So we won the Blackmagic camera. So Blackmagic were just launching into cameras then.
Yeah, I remember.
So they decided to give, I think it was the Smoke and Mirrors guys, one of the first cameras as the prize. So when we won it, we were just like, cha-ching! We were so happy.
Yeah.
And I think actually, I still got my certificate here. So
don't ever lose that
for the film. Mine. So yeah, I keep it a few keepsakes along with things like my old para helmet from Afghanistan.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I like to keep these keepsakes, but it was just wonderful the way it worked out. So shooting it on the Blackmagic was really good because we'd managed to get another one by that stage, so we could have a few cameras running it at any one stage and things. Yeah.
So we mentioned the cast a little bit, and it's interesting how, because normally small films like this, they don't have many well-known actors, or at least anyone to have a big part. But obviously, you had Jeremy Jones, who went on to star on The Last Post. The BBC series.
Yes.
So I'm assuming this in some way contributed towards
I would like to think that he somehow used clips of this maybe too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Joe Prospero, he was a kid actor before this, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And
so he worked with
he worked with Johnny Depp, I think. Yeah.
In that Peter Pan thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, so my brother, who plays the medic, he basically was friends with Joe because he went to university with him. And my brother, he used to be an actor. He's now working in the police. But so he was able to get Joe into the film, which was great. And actually, Mark, who plays the lead para, Jared again knew him, so I was able to. Cause, I think Mark did a good job. Again, just so grateful for the cast that we had, and everybody, and the way it all worked together. It was, a very, very special time. But I can't believe it's over 10 years ago. That's just crazy.
Well, and 13 or something like that.
Yeah, I just looked at the release date, and it's December 2013 on the Vimeo.
Yikes! I didn't even think about that.
Well, it holds up so well. It's crazy how it doesn't even look like it's aged at all. Yeah. I just love it.
I'm very, very grateful for the experience. And like I say, for a final, live action thing to make, I'm glad it was that.
Will you never go back to making live action? No. Okay.
It's just too much. It's just too much hassle, too much money, too much hassle. Because I'd only recently been married at that stage, and my wife was very patient with me putting some of the money I'd saved in Afghanistan into films and things. So.
You'd know about that, wouldn't you, Mitch?
No, not in the slightest. So, was there anything that was left on the cutting room floor that you wished made it in, or did you get pretty much everything you wanted?
We got pretty much everything. We basically wrote the script and shot it exactly, but because the filming was so limited, we didn't really have much time to experiment with anything else.
Sure.
And we had to sort of, I don't know how well the CG holds up, 10 years later. I'd imagine.
I thought it was great.
Well. But, we, with the tanks and the number of Germans, we only had like a handful of Germans. So we had to just replicate them and get them to do the same guys do the same things.
Yeah.
And then we just cut the frame into bits and stick it all together. Yeah. Yeah, so I think we did the best with what we could have done with what we had, I guess, at the time. Because it was quite limited with everything. But and everyone was exhausted coming home again. I remember people I had to drive the minibus, but everyone else was just like passed out asleep afterwards. Yeah.
How long did it take you to set up the set itself? Was it already ready for you when you went there?
What was great about that woodland, and I forgot the main selling point was that it had a trench. Because we did not have time to dig a trench, and so it was it was a woodland next to an old train track and a live train track, and you could only shoot in one direction really, but it had a trench, and I was like, okay, it's got a trench, let's do it. So it wasn't that bad. Hamish, I think, started dressing it as soon as we got there. He just started dressing it with sandbags and things like that, so that we're able to get it in straight away. The biggest concern I had was about hanging Dickie or Joe upside down with his parachute cord, but again, Hamish built a rig for that, and it worked fine, which was good. Yeah.
I have got one question. So your corporal, his name John Mills. Is that a reference to the actor John Mills, or
is that just
no?
Okay, no. It's a good question, but no, it's not. I think I just chose a sort of like a British World War II style name for it. Yeah.
And so when I saw it, I was like, has he? Hasn't he?
Yeah.
But
no. It's just a random British sounding name. Yeah.
So are the characters inspired by any historical figures or like people you met in your time in the service? Is there like any correlation there? Or
a little bit. So again, I guess many of them are sort of composite in some ways, but I had some wonderful leaders both in Iraq and Afghanistan. I had some bad leaders in Iraq particularly. I wanted to try and pick out the good bits that I liked from various leaders. I always remember there was a American colonel in Afghanistan, and we got to a new like patrol base, and he was just there like carrying all the crates of water with the privates, and I just thinking like, man, that's a good leader. He's a good leader, because so many officers and higher ups don't do that, and sometimes of course there isn't a time and place for them to do that, but I think when a good leader has the opportunity to do that and to serve and love their men in that way, they do, and it's really effective. And I found that lots of examples of people like that, and also good leaders know the different personalities and character flaws and character, I guess, proficiency of each of their people, and so being able to have a quiet word with them, as Mills does to Dickie at various stages, I think can often be very effective. Good mark of leadership. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine trying to lead or control someone like Dickie Brown, because obviously,
same.
You see, in the film, obviously, you see most of the paras, they're fairly they're accepting their fate at the very
Yes.
least.
Yeah.
But then there's someone who hasn't really come under that sort of situation before. So, did you ever experience anything like that with new chaps coming along into that sort of situation?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's a real cliche. And I'm sure, is it Black Hawk Down? They say that nobody really knows what they're going to be like until the first bullet goes past their head. And I definitely found that. I mean, I won't beat around the bush that I probably am more of a coward in life than I'd like to be. Like when I play football, soccer for you, Mitchell, I'm scared of the ball hitting me. But when I was in probably about 55 fights in total in Afghanistan, and I found that when the bullets did start going past my head, you don't know how you're going to react until that moment. And I was just really grateful that I was able to do what I needed to do at that stage. And just seeing, some people who are, who are big and macho, actually, when they're either in the plane about to jump or maybe in the combat, don't always act in the way you think they will. And then other people, who might look a bit more like Dickie Brown, actually in combat are fantastic and just they're unflappable. So it's always interesting. You never know how you're going to react until that moment comes. Yeah,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, he was a great proxy for the for the storyline, and he didn't actually strike me as a coward, and that's what I appreciated. He didn't really fall into that trope of Corporal Upham, that type of thing from Saving Private Ryan, where he was he was out of his. I mean, he was an air crewman and dropped in a situation that he's not familiar with. He's not going to pick up a rifle as his everyday job, but he does as he's told, and still. I mean, there was a lot of examples in Arnhem 44 by Martin Middlebrook of the air crews and the glider pilots who picked up a weapon and fought side by side with those guys. And I still think he encompassed that Arnhem spirit that's such a huge focus of the remembrance of Market Garden today in the Netherlands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, it's just amazing because I think, in this day and age, let's say you're in the Middle East and, you have the choice, am I going to fight or surrender? Well, there's probably a good chance if you get caught, you're going to get beheaded anyway, so you may as well fight to the end. But in those days, I think for airborne forces, generally, I know the SS notwithstanding, that you probably would be treated okay-ish and you'd go to a POW camp. So to still choose to fight to the end is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions here because we're closing in on a half hour. We don't want to take too much more of your time. We really appreciate it because this has been a lot of fun.
No, it's a pleasure.
Hopefully we have you back because we'd love to have you back.
Anytime,
okay, great.
Yeah.
So what was the hardest part of the production for you?
So I think getting everything together, because I sort of obviously Hamish helped to produce it, but I had to sort of organize a lot of it. So getting it all together, and then editing it, because historically I've always edited my own stuff, but I came back and I was absolutely exhausted, and I just thought I can't do this. I don't even, we had like terabytes and terabytes of footage to go through, and it was amazing. My friend Dave Arshadi, and again he's gone on to good things in the industry. He helped to edit Downton Abbey and things like that. So
wow.
He at that stage was still building his showreel, and he's like, look, I love a period piece because I've been told I need a period piece in my showreel. And I was like, mate, could you edit this?
Cool.
Okay, so I drove around to his house, which took about 2 hours, dropped it all off, and he said, leave it with me. I'll be in touch, and if there's any big decisions, I'll run it by you. And then I came back to his house about a month later, and we sat down together for about 6 hours and just went through different things. And then so all of that headache of editing, which I was dreading and I was feeling quite low about, he just did it, and he did a far better job than I could have done. So I was really grateful for that. Really, really.
Well, but you did the title sequence, correct?
Yes, because basically,
that was great.
I love Adobe After Effects. I now animate in Adobe After Effects. So I love the introductions of shows where they take photos and manipulate them, so they'll cut them out. And was it the first season of True Detective, I think, which does that? And it's just a really beautiful way of doing it. Obviously, it's become quite overused now, but back then it hadn't been used a huge amount. So I approached the Imperial War Museum and I asked if I could buy the rights to these photos, and then I went to town cutting them out the different layers in Photoshop and then animating a 3D camera around. So it turned out fantastic.
And so, 'cause you can definitely see, because I think it's the last photo in that set where there's just half a dozen blokes sat in the trench.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you can definitely see where the ideas come from.
Yeah, and I'm glad that matched up well, and also having the actual parachute drop represented in the photo. Then it's like, well, we haven't shown it obviously because we can't afford to, but at least we've shown real images of what it was like.
Yeah.
Well, so what's cool about that photo, and it watching the short film means even more now, having walked the perimeter. But on the perimeter route, they have a post with information and then pictures of the actual spot. That picture of the guys in that trench is on the route, and I remember walking by that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's the show off for this sort of thing.
Oh, come on. I mean, it's just, I mean, it was incredible. And then, like I said, to see this film now after having been there, boy, that location looked a lot like Oosterbeek.
Yeah, no, Hamish, because I think it was Hamish that recommended the location. It was really good, yeah. And honestly, I think for anyone listening that is interested in military history in World War II, if you can ever make it to Arnhem, it is one of the best trips to go on. I mean, as a paratrooper, it was the best way to travel because you would literally just get on a Hercules plane and RAF Bryce Norton, fly over the channel, jump out, land in a field and go to a pub. There were no passport checks or anything. Obviously now there was a big hoo-ha this summer because the French police actually did passport checks in Paris as they landed in France, but because of Brexit, I think, but thankfully there wasn't any. And there are thousands of, and I always love just the amount of Dutch people that are so invested in it, and young people, kids. And then when you go to bars or to restaurants, you can't pay for anything yourself.
Right.
Everyone is just like so it's one of like the highlights of my military career for sure. I really enjoyed that.
So go ahead, Sam. No, go ahead.
No. I was just go on.
So I've got one more question.
Yes.
Okay, so the BBC picks up the phone. Josh, we just canceled Rogue Heroes. We want to do another World War II miniseries. What's the World War II miniseries you would give to BBC if they threw a bunch of money at you and you had to make a World War II series?
So I would be, just because I still don't think Arnhem has received enough coverage, I would still want to do something like that. But I'm very biased. If not that, there's a few things I'd consider. I mean, I always love... is it Anthony Beevor's World War II, his massive epic?
Oh,
have you guys read that? The very introduction speaks about that poor bloke who... was he a Chinese man who got imprisoned and forced to fight for the Japanese, then forced to fight for the Russians, then captured by the Germans, and he found himself on the beaches ready to...
Yeah, got captured at Utah Beach.
I just like the story of that man's life, how he ended up in that situation.
Yeah.
That would be interesting because obviously you're getting a look at every single war front basically through the So that's something that always fascinated me, the story of that guy and how he ended up in that position. Yeah,
I think didn't they make a film about that a few years ago?
Yeah, it was loosely based on. I mean, it's good. I mean, it's the CGI is a little shaky at times, but it's entertaining. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be about, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh wow! No, I didn't know they did that. That's great.
But okay, so an Arnhem miniseries. Well, I mean, hopefully they'll pull you back into live action if that's ever the case.
I suppose there's two things I wanted to sort of mention is that I love how you've included the various regimental distinctions, so the Royal Armour Medical Corps, the Royal Corps of Signals. They're not just paras. They are actual various different regiments, which I know outside of the UK won't make much sense to anybody.
No, but within the UK, it's a really important thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And also how they never say 30 Corps, they say Second Army.
Yes.
I'd say, because that's just a big thing for me, because 30 Corps sort of hogs all the limelight when it comes to Market Garden.
Yeah.
So having even just small references, just saying Second Army, I think that makes a big difference to people's conscience.
Yeah, because again, I think Brits speak in a specific way, and Brit soldiers speak in a specific way as well. So yeah.
And so I can't go and watch it, people. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it.
Yeah. So, Josh, I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up here. We're hitting the 35-minute mark. So thank you so much for doing this. Where can people find you? Where can people find your work?
If you go just Google Josh Fortune. If you want to see my Afghanistan stuff, just do Josh Fortune Afghanistan. There's a few different videos around. My website, which I haven't updated for about 5 years, is joshfortune.com. I think it is. So yeah, that's got mine and some of the other things that I've done on it. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll post a link to that in the description.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Sammy, unless you got anything else, I think
No,
that'll do
that's it. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
no, thank you for playing Glenn Miller. I love Glenn Miller.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. How hard was it to get the rights to that?
I think the rights had expired on that, or I did a pirate job on it. I can't remember. I think
that's a good note for me.
When we looked into it, because it was so long, I think the rights were up for grabs. Although that almost doesn't seem right. So I don't know. I can't remember what we did for that.
Well, I think that's one of those things where you're allowed like a certain amount of time from a song.
We only played and I think that's what it was. But I'd have to check.
That's fantastic. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of World War II Above and Below, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Thanks.